So today we're going to consider the hormonal control of blood pressure. This of course has the same purpose as the neurological control of blood pressure, but what the endocrine system is able to do is to regulate blood pressure over longer time periods. So this is more of a long-term solution. The nervous system is able to do much more rapid changes to blood pressure. Now, in thinking about this, it's got a very similar principle to the neural control of blood pressure. So we start off, as within the nervous system, with some kind of sensor. Okay? And what this sensor is able to do is it is able to detect changes in blood pressure. And if we're considering the hormonal regulation of blood pressure, these are baroreceptors, but they're present in the kidney, not in the carotid sinus. So we have baroreceptors in the kidney which detect changes in blood pressure, and they are then capable of causing the release of various hormones. So I'll just write down initially here we've got hormone X. Now hormone X may have some direct effects upon the cardiovascular system or other systems of the body, but what it also does is, through a number of intermediary steps, results in the release of other hormones, ending on, say, hormone Y. So hormone X and hormone Y and their intermediaries are able to affect blood pressure, and they do this by causing changes in effector organs. Now in this case the effector organs can be, say, the heart, the blood vessels, the kidney, or even the brain. So we might wish to change our behaviour, say getting a drink or something like that, to increase our blood pressure. So this is the very simple principle of an endocrine control system. So now let's have a closer look at the specifics for regulation of arterial blood pressure. Now the endocrine control of blood pressure relies upon three major organs. We have the kidneys, the lungs, and this speckled region here, which is the adrenal cortex. The central part of the adrenal gland, as you might recall, is called the adrenal medulla and releases adrenaline to stimulate the fight or flight response. Now, decreases in arterial blood pressure are detected by the kidneys, and in response the kidneys release an enzyme called renin. And renin has quite an interesting job. It's involved in the conversion of a peptide called angiotensinogen, which I'm going to abbreviate as A0. Renin converts angiotensinogen into angiotensin 1. Now, angiotensin 1 on its own does not do a great deal. It actually needs to go to the lungs, and in the lungs it is exposed to an enzyme called the angiotensin converting enzyme. And this enzyme converts angiotensin 1 into a much more potent molecule called angiotensin 2. And it is angiotensin 2 which is a major mediator in this system. Angiotensin 2 has three major effects. The first important effect is it causes vasoconstriction. And as you may remember from our previous mini tutorials, vasoconstriction in arterioles is a major way in which the body is able to increase arterial blood pressure. So vasoconstriction is an important mechanism of increasing arterial blood pressure. The second important function that angiotensin 2 has is on the brain. And what it does in the brain is it stimulates thirst. It increases the feeling of thirst. And if we drink more fluid, this increases our blood volume. And if we increase the volume of blood, we're able to increase its pressure. So by taking on more fluid, we're able to increase the blood pressure in that way. The third important function of angiotensin 2 is on the adrenal cortex. And angiotensin 2 stimulates the adrenal cortex to release a further hormone called aldosterone. And aldosterone has very important effects on the kidney. And basically what aldosterone does in the kidney is it stimulates the kidney to retain sodium and water. So aldosterone stimulates the kidney to hold on to sodium and water. If we excrete less water, then we're able to maintain our circulating volume more effectively, and we're able to maintain our blood pressure more effectively. So this is a very important system for the medium to long-term regulation of blood pressure. Now, there are a few interesting clinical points that I'd like to make as well. Some of you may have relatives who are taking what are known as ACE inhibitor drugs such as ramipril or captopril. And what ACE inhibitors do is inhibit the activity of the angiotensin converting enzyme. And as you will recall, angiotensin converting enzyme is important for the production of the very potent angiotensin 2. So if we have a patient who has high blood pressure and we wish to decrease it, it would be a sensible approach to decrease the amount of angiotensin 2 that they have in their body. And this is what ACE inhibitors do very effectively. Secondly, I'd like to point out to you that sodium, i.e. common salt, is important in this pathway as well. And we do know with a fairly high level of confidence that high levels of salt in the diet can contribute to high levels of blood pressure. And if you understand this diagram, you should be able to work out why that might be the case. Although I must stress that the jury is still out ever so slightly on the detailed mechanisms. Finally, before we finish, I'd just like to point out that there are a number of other hormonal systems involved in the regulation of blood pressure. For example, the adrenal medulla, which releases adrenaline, a hormone capable of increasing blood pressure. Additionally, the pituitary gland is able to release a hormone known as antidiuretic hormone, which has important effects on thirst and blood pressure as well. And additionally, the heart itself is able to act as an endocrine gland, releasing factors such as atrial natriuretic peptide. Okay, so that's all I've got to say. Thanks for listening. I hope that was helpful, and as always, please leave some feedback, whether good or bad, so that I can make these as good as possible. Alright, bye.